The
So,
meeting is being recorded.
oh, thank you, Daniel. Yes. Um, so we're going to talk about Rails associations today. And we're going to build out a small application. We're going to start this from scratch again, just like we have been the past few days. And if we still have time, we'll go over some bonus topics. It kind of depends on how long this takes us. But let's get started. And we're going to, first of all, build a has many belongs to relationship. Hopefully, we still have time to do a many to many. I would like to go over some of that as well. Otherwise, I'm pretty sure that Emily and Adam are doing a review on Monday, and that will probably include a many to many relationship. Plus, we should have a lot of labs that do that as well. Let's start with our belongs to has many relationship. We're going to build a little application where farmers can have many cows and a cow can belong to a farmer. So let's start by creating a new application. We'll call it farmer. I'm making this like a short form or farmer because once you name your application the same as one of your models, you might run into trouble with Rails not creating those models and saying, you know, your application essentially already has that name. All right. And pretty much everything that we're doing here is also in the README. So feel free to kind of scroll through this as you're, if you're reviewing this. It has all of the steps in it that we're going to take today to create this.
Is the README already up?
It is not. Would you like it right now?
I was just wondering.
I could just, I can paste this, I can post this in the Slack channel if you want to just take a look at it.
Sure, that'd be nice. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, no problem. Let's see. So this is Markdown. I'm not sure. Let's see. It didn't apply the formatting. How do you add? Someone knows how to like add Markdown. I feel like it used to be possible. Anyway, this is the text is there, so I hope that works. Cool.
Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. All right, so we have our application created. It's sitting right here, farmer. And from here, we want to probably start by creating a couple of models, some migrations, some controllers. I'm going to start with my farmer model. And actually, I'm going to use a different kind of generator that we haven't used before. It's called a resource generator. If you may have seen this in the labs, you may have used it here and there. It creates a little bit more than, it creates less than our scaffold generator, and it creates more than our controller and our model generators. So let's see what we get if we run our resource generator. For farmer, a farmer is going to have a name. We're going to just kind of keep it simple today. And oh, you have to make sure that you're in your application before you run this. And let's create this farmer. Farmer is already used in the application. Okay, I think this is because I created the same application earlier. Let me try reloading. I apologize. Let's see if this works. All right, let's try this one more time. Cool. How's everybody feeling about Rails at this point? Are there any particular like concepts that you're still struggling with? Anything in particular that you want to review?
Some of the form helper methods are eating my lunch.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right, we'll do. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, and for me, part of it is just still trying to figure out where certain things go and where they shouldn't be.
Okay. Okay.
Like such as what should constantly always be in the controller, or what goes in the models, or what goes in the views.
Okay. Sounds good. Anything else?
Many to many for me.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
see if we can get to that today. All right, hoping that this will work now. Oh, I'm still not in my, doing this again, okay. There we go. Sometimes a reload will do it. Okay.
Would you be able to touch on the delegate when you have the associations like many to many, and like when you have to delegate? Because I feel like I ran into one of these into the labs and I was like super confused on how to do that. Does that make sense?
Let's so let's see if we can get to the many to many. I'm going to try to get through this. You know, I don't want to go through this too fast, but if we do get to it, we can, you know, I'm happy to answer whatever questions you have. Okay, so let me write this down real quick. So we have farm helpers. Yeah, farm helpers. Where does, like, what code go? Like what type of code goes where? Goes where? And then we have many to many. Cool. All right. So we have our, I created this, use this resource generator for the farmer. And this will create for me migrations. It will create for me models. I didn't use the Node test framework, so I have a bunch of tests in here as well. It will create a controller. It will even put into my routes file. It will put this resources for farmers in here. And it'll create a couple of helpers. So it's essentially our controller and our model generator together. And it also adds the routes and several test files. So kind of saves us a little bit of time. Again, I would recommend that you still understand what each one of those generators does before you use a generator that, you know, does a whole lot for you. All right, so let's check our migrations just in case. We got our farmer. Farmers have a name, and that is pretty much all that farmers have. So in addition to the farmer, we want to create our cows, right? Our cows are going to belong to a farmer. And we're going to use a generator for this as well. We're going to use a resource generator for a cow, and a cow is going to have a name. A cow is going to have spots, which will be an integer. And a cow is going to have a relationship with a farmer. If you want to create a has many belongs to relationship, and you want to do this via a generator, you can do this by first creating your model or like migration that has the has many relationship on it. So a farmer has many cows, right? And then once we create the belongs to part of the relationship, so in our case, the cow, we can add a farmer as a reference to that cow. So we can essentially say this cow and the farmer are related in some way, and in more specifically, the cow belongs to a farmer. And I'll show you in just a second what that will create for us. So we add this farmer colon references again. This is what it creates a couple of pieces of code for us that create this relationship between the farmer and the cow. You could hypothetically do all of this manually. There's nothing wrong with doing this, these pieces manually. I'm just showing you how you would do it with a generator. So first of all, if we check, yeah, go ahead.
How come you're not doing the Node test framework?
Just because I forgot. No particular reason. Yeah, I would usually do that here, but I just forgot to do it. So a couple of things that this adds for us when we add this references in our generator. First of all, it adds our belongs to relationship in our model. So this is how we connect our different models. We have our cow that belongs to a farmer, right? And our farmer has many cows. Please remember that if you use this generator with the references, we only have one side of the relationship in our models created. We only have the belongs to. If we go to our farmer's model, we do not have the has many. because the farmer's model was created previously, Rails generally like would not try to modify a model that isn't being created from scratch. So we still have to add our has many relationship in here. So we can say a farmer has many cows. Make sure that you watch the singular plural here. A cow, just like you would say this in regular English, right? A cow belongs to a farmer, singular. A farmer has many cows, plural. So make sure you get that right. This will create your methods on those models. So once we have a farmer, we can say, farmer dot first dot cows. So this farmer has many cows. We would never say like farmer dot cow because it should be many of them. Right? Again, this plural singular here comes into play. Okay, so let's check out our migration, and actually let's go ahead and migrate. Let's do Rails DB migrate and see what Rails creates for us. So if we look at our cow migration, first of all, you can see that this references line was added for us by adding this to our generator. What that creates for us is it automatically adds the farmer ID to our cows table as a foreign key. There are a couple of things that are going on here. The one thing that you should remember, and again, you can do this manually, there's no particular reason. Well, there are a couple of reasons why you might want to use a generator, but functionality wise, like you can achieve the same thing by going into your migration and just saying t dot integer farmer ID, right? This is your foreign key on your cow model. So again, you can do this manually. Don't be afraid to do that. We'll probably, when we do the many to many, we'll probably go ahead and do that manually. Just wanted to show you how it works with the generator. The cool thing about a generator is it adds a couple of other things for you. In particular, it adds, so it adds our farmer ID to our table. It also adds this like index to our table, which really the only reason that we have that here is so that it actually kind of speeds up your database a little bit. Rails, it makes it possible for Rails to more easily index your models, like more easily find the relationship between two models. This is not necessary for our relationship to work. The only thing that's necessary is to have this farmer ID on our cows table. One other thing that's being added is this add foreign key. Down here, we're probably not going to worry about that too much. It has to do with kind of keeping our relationships clean. So for instance, if we have a farmer that has many cows and we want to delete that farmer, we should make sure that the cows are deleted along with that farmer. It has something to do with that. Well, we can talk about that a little bit more later. But the important thing is here that we added a farmer ID to our cows table. And now, hypothetically, after adding also our has many and belongs to macros to our models, we would be able to associate a farmer with a cow. And let's go ahead and try this.
Question.
Yes.
On the migration where it says null false, that tells SQL not to allow a null value, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
So we'll actually see this in practice. Let's go ahead and try to create a cow. So we're going to say Molly equals cow dot new, and the cow has a name and spots. 15, and we're creating this instance of a cow. So if we try to save this cow now, we can see that this does not go through. And the reason for that is exactly what you just mentioned. We're not able to add a cow without having a farmer, right? So because a cow belongs to a farmer, we have to make sure that we add some kind of farmer ID in order to be able to add that cow. And so if we want to add a cow, we have to have a farmer first. So let's go ahead and create a farmer. Let's say Bob. All right, so we have our farmer. We can now create our cow again. And we can say, in addition to having a name and having spots, a cow will also have a reference to a farmer. We can either say, we can associate the farmer and the cow with the farmer ID. We know that the farmer ID is 1 here. We could also say farmer.first, or what did we name the variable? f.id, right? Or we could say our farmer is within this variable f right here. Both of these are totally valid. It doesn't really matter which one you choose, the association is created no matter what. All right, now let's go ahead and save that cow. And this is successful. So previously we weren't able to save it because we didn't have a farmer. Now we added a farmer and now we can save our cow. Now I can look at my farmer. I can say farmer dot first, and I can say farmer dot first dot cows. And this will give me an array of all the cows that the farmer has. This is our relationship successfully working. We can do this the inverse as well. So we have Molly dot farmer, which will give us back this one farmer that the cow belongs to. This will always only be 1 because we have a has many belongs to. Questions here about the relationship that we created? That's all making sense?
Yeah, you could easily just take this and make a simple application of like, oh, let me check Farmer Brown has like 10 cows. And you'd be able to, okay.
Yeah, exactly. So we can go ahead and add more cows, add more farmers as well. Let's go into our seeds file and add a few more farmers. I think I have something here. Okay, let's grab this. We'll add some more farmers. I want to seed my database, RelsDB seed. And then from here, you like the farmer names. From here, we can have a little bit of data to work with. Okay, so one thing that I would always recommend is test out your relationships, right? Once you create your schema, once you create all the associations in the models, go into your Rails console and test out the relationships first. Before you even build a form, before you build any kind of view, it's a great way to just kind of see if everything's up and running before you get into everything a little bit too deep. So what I want to do is I want to, and I already have my routes here. I'm going to not touch those right now. What I want to do is I want to create a page where we have the ability to create a new cow. And we want to create this new cow with a relationship to one of our farmers. So first of all, I have my routes already. What do I need to do next in order to create this new page for a cow?
Go into your controller and make sure you have a new action.
Awesome. Let's do that right now. Perfect. And again, you can always also use this error-driven development where you kind of just go to your server and you check for the errors that you're getting and follow those errors to solve the problem. Next thing, the view. We already have our folders. They were already created for us. We create a new file here for a new page. And this should give us a blank page right now. Make sure that you test this like step by step, that each one of your pieces are fitting together.
I had a quick question about the seeds.
Mm-hmm.
Everything was an array of hashes. So this is going to be different than the way we seeded our data in our CLI app, obviously a little bit different.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter how you do this. If you're not quite sure, I would always use the example that they kind of give you here at first. So it would be something like farmer.create, right? Farmer has a
Okay.
name. And then you can do this, 5 times if you want.
Okay.
Here we're just doing it in a little bit of a different way. Again, whichever way you feel most comfortable with is fine.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
I'll leave this in here as well.
I have a question. So I was doing a lab earlier and I ran Rails DB seed and then it told me that I should run Rake DB seed. Is there a difference?
So if you don't have a Rails application and you only have Rake to work with, then it'll probably ask you to use Rake. There's not really much of a difference if you have a Rails application. It's really like Rails DBC really runs Rake DBC like in the background. It's really just like an alias for that. So
Okay.
So if you have a Rails application, you can run either one. If it tells you like Rails DB isn't available, go with Rake. That means you don't have that alias available. Okay, cool. We have our new page. We don't have anything on here yet, so let's go ahead and create a form to create a new cow. Someone tell me a macro that I can use here, like a form helper to help me create this form.
Form 4.
Form 4, perfect. Let's do that. Let's create a form 4. Make sure you have your equal sign with form 4, right? So form 4. And I would like to just kind of like close this off so I don't forget about it. What's the syntax here for form 4? What do I pass in here?
You need your instance variable there in parentheses, I believe.
Yeah, so it doesn't actually matter much like if we add parentheses or not. Again, we talked about yesterday, I think we talked about syntactic sugar, which is like what did we have? Oh, we were talking about the link to. Remember when we had the link to, and if we say like, let's take this out of our form. If we say we want to link to the cow path and then path in our cow, right? We can either do that or we could say, just go ahead and link to @cow. Rails provides this syntactic sugar on top to make it easier for us to like write shorter code. Same thing goes for a form 4. We could put this in parentheses because really it's an argument that we provide. But we can also omit it. It will, functionality wise, it's the same. It's just syntactic sugar on top of what we're doing. Okay,
Oh, one more question. What is CalPath exactly? Like behind the scenes? Like how does Rails just know what CalPath is?
Yeah, that's a great question. So if we go to like one of our like error pages here, we can see that we have all these routes because we have our resources in our routes file, right? Let's go back to that real quick. We have this resources for cows. So these lines of code are essentially created for us. So we have our cow path right here, and Rails creates this like alias for making sure that we can route to a certain URL. So cow path here corresponds to our /cow/ID. So that would be like our show page. So whenever you're not sure about which like underscore path you're supposed to use, check out your either Rails/info/routes or one of the URLs that you don't have in your application, and it will show you this. So we know that, or in this case that we had here, we wanted to link the user to like a single cow page. It doesn't make a lot of sense. Well, if you want to go from the new to the show page, I guess that makes sense. But if you want to link the user to like the show page for a single cow, we can always check in these routes. We can see that this line right here is for our show page. It routes us to /cow/ID. And the path for that is cow_path. And remember, whenever we have an ID in our URL, we have to pass in the either the cow.id, right? Or like the entire cow. It doesn't really matter which one you do. They're all valid. Does that explain it?
Yeah, that cleared up a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, so
Question.
all of these should be exactly the same. They will all get you to the same result. Someone else have a question?
Is there really any different, like here we've got the instance variable @cow where we would need to go back into the new action and do @cow equals cow.new. But here you could just do form for cow.new and it would work pretty much the same way, right?
Yeah, it would. So this, I think we talked about this on the like first or second day of like abstracting away your code that talks to your models into your controller, because the views and the models should never really talk to each other. There's really nothing wrong with saying like cow.new here. The only thing is that if you say @cow and you create your new cow instance in your controller, which we still have to do, you are kind of keeping you're separating your concerns a little bit more. Functionality wise, it's the same.
Never mind.
Someone else have a question?
I was wondering with like since you're creating forms for both your new and your edit later on, wouldn't if you had the cow.new in there, wouldn't it make it more wouldn't it make it hard to have like just the a forms.html.erb like to switch back and forth, because essentially the forms are gonna be the same, right?
Using a partial, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so when we use partials, and we'll probably talk about partials on Monday, partials aren't going to really be on the code challenge. So feel free to kind of dive into that if you have time. But you can also put that off if you want to focus on some other stuff. Yeah, so once we have a partial, the way that partials work is that we have the ability to pass information to a partial. So even though we have the same form for a new page and an edit page, the object that we pass into it might be different, right? So for a new page, it might be a cow that is, doesn't have anything on it, and for the edit page, it might be the cow that already has information on it. Daniel, I think maybe also you were saying like if we use this @cow variable, it makes it easier for us
That's what I
pass that. Okay, yeah, that's exactly right. So if we use this variable instead of saying cow.new, it makes it easier for us to pass this into our form, no matter if it's a new cow or an existing cow, like new or edit form. Yeah, it's a really good point. Cool. All right, let's finish up our form. We have our form 4. All the syntax is looking good here. How do we add a new input field here for the name of the cow, say?
f.label.
F.label? What is
But you need
F.label?
the squids first.
You need the squids.
Is it?
Okay,
Is
do
it
I need my
formally
equal
called
sign?
a squid? You do.
Yeah.
Yes. Someone just asked something about the squid.
Is that the official name, squid?
I've actually, I think I've heard it from like Seattle instructors calling it that. I always call them ERB tags.
I learned it from Daniel.
Oh yeah, I don't know where squid came from, but if you want to call it that.
It looks like a squid.
It came from
Yeah.
Sandaria.
Right. Yeah, I think Sandaria calls it that. That's right.
Or Seattle.
Yeah.
Can we go over what f.label is doing?
Yeah, so what is this? Well, we're not quite done with this yet. What else do I need here for this to show me anything? Name. If I have a name for a cow. Yeah, so what does this create for us?
The label.
Creating the label.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
So we don't even have like an input field yet. The only thing that this creates for us is this label right here. So this is actually not like the important part of our form. Hypothetically, if you left all the labels out and had just your input fields, your form would still work. Labels are usually just there for making your app a little bit more accessible and easier to understand. So this right here, this piece of code is created by writing this f.label using this form helper here. So just the label with the for attribute that will then correspond to our input field. And then the name of the label is just the name of whatever attribute you're using in that case. So if we had, what else do we have? Spots, right? It will create.
But don't you also have to give in the form data? So like f.label name and then f. text area.
Yeah, so that's actually the important part about our form. Again, like if we just had label, our form would be pretty much useless. The actual part that we need is having some kind of input fields where the user can, write something. Does that answer your question, Ashley?
Yeah, it did.
Okay.
Thank
cool.
you.
Okay, so how do I actually go about adding some kind of input field here?
Squid.
Squid.
F.text
equals.
area. Yeah.
With equals, exactly.
Well, the equals
And-
is the squid, and then the other side is not a squid.
Okay. So like if
It looks like a
it has an
squid.
equal sign, then it's a squid. What is it? What do you
Yeah.
call it if it doesn't have an equal sign?
A clown hat.
Okay. All right. Everybody can come up with their own. Yeah, that's great. I
We're
like
gonna write a cohort style guide, so
it. Yeah, write some documentation for this. I'd love that.
We can make a blog post on it.
Okay, so what did this create for me, this text area thing?
a big old text field that can
Text.
be
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, not text area. We want to, yeah.
Hypothetically, like this would still make our form functional. There's nothing wrong with this. It just shows us like a different type of input field. What's the what is the other, like the normal input field that I can create?
Is it text
Not
field?
area. Text field. Yes. So that will create just a normal non-expandable input field for us. Okay, so we have our spots as well. So spots is probably going to be a number, right? Does someone know how I create something like that will, I don't want to say it.
Is it the select collect or something like that?
We'll
For
get
the
to
drop-down
that.
menu?
We'll get to that
That
when
could be
we
for, like,
talk about the
farmers.
farmer. Yeah. How do I create a form field that accepts
Is
a
it-
number?
Is it a num field?
It's a number field, yeah.
Okay, good.
So it's actually, and the only difference here is that when you see when I click into the input field, there's nothing here, but in the num field, I have these up and down arrows. I can also hit my up and down keys to like increment and decrement my number. With number fields, you can also set like steps, like if you want to increment by 5 every time, or you can set a maximum or minimum, all that kind of stuff, which we're not going to worry about here, but just know that these are a little bit different. And again, it doesn't really, if you were to turn this into an input in a text field, it wouldn't really make too much of a difference.
Can you set an alias for the label name instead of like symbol spots? You could call it number of spots, make it clear
Yeah.
to the user.
I think it's just, I think you just add like number of spots. No.
You
Is there
need a
a
comma
comma
after
here?
spots.
Yeah, I would, this is all like in the Rails docs. Feel free to look the stuff up. Again, you don't have to know the exact syntax for all of this. It is okay to look that up. Yeah, so if we want to add a custom label, we just add that after. What other thing before we deal with the farmer do I always need in a form?
Submit.
Submit.
Perfect. Squid f dot submit. And here again, if you want to name this something different, you just add, say, create this new cow. Yeah, okay, so there's no comma here. That's why I remembered it the other way. Okay. Yeah,
Oh, interesting.
again, please like just look up the syntax. I don't expect you to know all of this by heart. I don't, so. Okay, so we have our name, we have our, oh, forgot to change this to spots. That's important. Why is this important that I change this to spots right here? And if I called this name, what would happen?
It'll overwrite the named column in the database or the instance.
Yeah,
It'll be-
so.
Or actually, in this case, it would be incorrect because you're going to put a number to a string
Right.
field.
Yeah, there are like a lot of things going on here. The main part to remember is like when let's bring this back to name. When we're building this form, if we look at the HTML here, you can see that now we have 2 input fields with the name of cow brackets name, right? Which will send, if you remember that this particular part forms our params hash that we send to our controller. So once we have 2 of them, I do believe that like the second one will probably overwrite the first. We will have information that's being overwritten. Plus we lose that spots information that's never being sent to our controller in any way. So it's important that we name this correctly. Yeah.
And when it potentially run into a strong params issue too, depending on how you have your params set up.
Yeah, so in that case, we probably wouldn't because we're omitting an attribute rather than adding one. I believe if you send like fewer attributes than you have in your strong params, it won't raise an error. It won't add that extra attribute. But if you were to try to add additional attributes that aren't in the strong params, then you would run into a problem. Great question. Okay, so who mentioned collection select earlier? Daniel, was that you? What's collection select all about?
That gives you the ability to choose multiple like farmers from the seed data that we have. So then when you do a collection select, you're populating a field with the seed data, right?
Yeah, so wait, does it give us the ability to select multiple farmers? How many farmers does a cow have?
You could do a drop down. So it could be, can you share a cow? I guess for now it's just one.
Yeah, so we have like 4 farmers, I think, but remember that a farmer has many cows and a cow belongs to a farmer. So whenever we create that association, we only ever add like 1 farmer to a cow. But I think what you meant was that we have the drop down where we can see all of the farmers that we can then choose from, which is exactly what we're doing. Cool. So we're going to create this collection select, and collection select is another one of our macros here, just like number field or like text field, that the only difference is it won't create an input field, normal input field. It won't create a numbered input field. It will create a drop down. So if you've seen a drop down before, it's just a drop down with multiple like things that we can select. So f dot collection select. Okay, there are a couple of things to collection select. If you look up the documentation, we can do that also. Collection select files. There's this wonderful article, What the Heck is Collection Select? Check that out, sounds good. Let's go to our Ruby on Rails docs. I think, wait. I think API docs is down right now. I haven't been able to reach
it's
it.
not responding.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't been able to get into it either.
Everybody's getting hacked these days.
Where are our Rails guides? There we go. Okay. So let's close some of this. Cool. So collection select. Collection select takes a couple of arguments here. If you kind of go through this, ooh, where did it go? We can see if you kind of read through this, you can figure out what the different arguments do. There's one thing that I want to remind you of that is somewhere here in this documentation. I always forget where it is. Oh, right here. Okay, so this part right here, it says, if you're using collection select within a form helper, so which is exactly what we're doing here, right? We're writing a form for that's a form helper. Form with would be the same story. If you're using collection select within the form helper, you omit the first argument. You do not add this first argument, which in our case would be the object that we're trying to relate this this new thing that we're creating to, or the particular farmer. Because we are building our form already around this cow object, we have that in our form for, we do not have to pass that as a first argument. In our case, the first argument will be the, what do we have, farmer underscore ID. So it's the field that we want to relate to within the cows table. So a cow has a farmer ID because one cow belongs to a farmer. So our first argument will be our farmer underscore ID. Again, the only thing that I was trying to tell you here is that whenever you see the documentation, a lot of times it will tell you that the first argument is the object that you're trying to relate this to. In our case, and this is going to be true for probably every collection select that you're writing, you have to omit this first argument, which is the object that we're building this form around already, because we're inside of a form for. Okay, long story short, first argument is our farmer ID. This is going to, remember when we write our strong params, which we're going to do in a second, we're going to have name, we're going to have spots, and we're going to have farmer ID to allow, we're going to allow these attributes to be sent to our controller to create a new cow. The second argument right here will be all of our farmers. So we can again do something that that Alec mentioned earlier. We can either say just farmer.all right here. We could also go inside of our controller and say farmers equals farmer.all. If we want to be consistent, I guess this would be a more consistent way of doing this. But you can also just say farmer.all. That would give you the same result. And then the next two arguments, I will show you what those do. I'm going to just this is not correct what I'm going to do, but I'm going to show you why I'm doing this. Okay, so I have now this drop-down menu. The drop-down menu right here has a bunch of numbers in it. The numbers are the farmer IDs. Obviously, if you go to a page like this, you want to see the actual farmer's name, right? You don't want to have to choose from the IDs. You don't know which farmer relates to which ID. So the last argument here is going to be the name of the farmer. That is what filled our drop-down field. So if we now look at our drop-down, we can see that these farmers all have names. If you wanted to somehow show the IDs to the user, you could do that by replacing this last one with the ID. The third argument here, I know I'm going not right quite in order, but the third argument here is the value that we're going to be sending to our controller. So whenever we create our params hat, let's see if we'll take a look at that later. Whenever we create our params hats, we always get these key value pairs, right? The key being, in our case, is going to be the farmer ID, and the value is going to be the ID of the farmer. Questions about collect and select, the arguments that we need here?
So then above the F collection select, would you do f.label and then just set that to ID? Oh, so online, yeah.
Yeah, so this would be
Or farmer ID?
farmer
Yeah.
ID. Yeah, let's check that out. So this will show us then farmer.
Oh, that's cool.
And then also, again, remember that when we click one of these, like our actual input field highlights, right? So it's cool to have those connected. Other questions about collection select?
Why would the label farmer ID put out farmer? Why wouldn't it put out like how does farmer ID equal just the farmer in that label?
Because Rails knows that the cow is related to the farmer and that the farmer ID essentially corresponds to us trying to select the farmer. I don't just want to say because of Rails magic, but because of Rails
Syntactic
magic.
sugar.
Some Rails magic.
So then if you did,
syntactic sugar.
if you did just farmer, would Rails also detect
That's
that
a good question.
you updated the ID?
Yeah, we might. So I think this will still, so let's see if we just did farmer here. Let's try that out. So I want to look at, so what do we need here to catch our form data in our controller?
Cow params.
Oh, we need our strong params. Yeah. Okay, let's do our strong params first. Cow params. Someone give me the syntax error.
Params dot require symbol cows.
Cows.
Oh.
Cow singular.
Right?
But it's based on the class.
Why cow singular? Still
'Cause
have
the
our form
name-
open here.
Because it's the
Is this for
name.
one instance of a cow?
Yeah, and remember that the whatever we have our name fields, like whatever they're called, whatever we have before our brackets, this is going to be the first key that points to our nested hash. So if you remember, our params hash is going to look something like this: cow, and then we have names. I don't know, Hulda. And we have spots, right? 20, and then we're going to have a farmer ID of 2. So this is our nested params hash right here, and this is coming from our form. So we have to make sure that our cow right here is going to match our params that we pass to, wherever we're using our cow params.
And those are based on the name of the class as well.
You mean this right here?
Yeah, so the cal bracket name that we're talking about in the form, we're using
Right.
cal because that's also the name of the class.
Correct.
Or
Because
cal, right?
exactly, because we're building, where's it, where to go? Because we're building this form 4 around this cow object, right? Which has these all these attributes. Exactly. So this is like all connected. All right. How do I finish my cow params here?
Dot permit.
Permit.
Name.
You do asterisk args.
You want to do args?
Yeah.
So let me keep that in here, but let's kind of keep both, especially because we're going to deal with the farmer ID. But if whichever one you feel more comfortable with, go for that. So we have spots, and then we're going to have farmer. Yeah. Okay. So what else do I need here? What action do I need to catch my params coming from my form?
Create.
Create. Nice. And let's just go ahead and put a bybug in here and take a look at what our params look like. Okay, so I think we are good to go. And we changed this to farmer. So let's see what that, actually, let's change this to farmer_ID first, and then we'll change it to farmer later and see what that looks like. All right, we got a new cow, and then let's pick one of our farmers here, create this new cow. We should be in our pry. And we make this terminals obviously smaller. So if we now look at our params, in particular the params cow, we can see we have our name, we have our spots, and we have our farmer ID. These are all attributes that we have inside of, where it goes, inside of our cow params right here. So if we now try to create this cow, cow.new with our cow params, we have this new cow. Let's try to save this cow. Save. And this is successful because all of the params that are coming from the form are in our strong params, in our cow params method here. Now let's try the same thing because we wanted to try this out with just farmer instead of farmer ID.
I think it might not let it through. See how it changes the ID on the last field? It's gonna call the param farmer, and then it won't permit it through because it's not called farmer ID.
Right. Yeah, so that's what I was thinking. So let's do another farmer here. And if we now look at our params, or params cow, we can see that instead of having a farmer ID, we have a farmer, right? So if we now try to create this, it's gonna do the same thing as earlier. We can actually already see an error coming from our strong params. We don't have this parameter permitted farmer. So you have to make sure that your farmer and I guess you can call this farmer here, but then the problem will be that, let's continue this, that our label and our input field aren't connected. So if we click on this label, it doesn't highlight our input field. So you want to make sure that those two match, and Rails is smart enough to figure out that we don't want this label to be called farmer ID, but farmer.
Is it getting on line 10? Is that farmer_ID there as part of the label on 10 for the name of the field? Is it coming on the class name of farmer? Is that where it would know to find it?
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
So on line 10, we have the farmer ID there, which then on the web page renders as just the word farmer. The class name is also farmer, correct?
Yeah, so
Rails is probably looking to get that.
Probably, yeah. I don't know exactly what the connection is there. You know, if you looked at the Rails source code, you could probably figure that out. I assume you're right. Like it gets it from the class name, from the farmer class name.
It's just magic.
Just magic, yeah.
I hate magic.
But really, there's this is all just Ruby code in the background, right? So if you could hypothetically look at the Rails Rails source code, and you would see all of these, you know, number field, collection select. You would see them all written out, and they all do something very specific. And it might seem like magic in the front end, but it's someone else that wrote that code. So. Okay, any other questions? Do you all want to go over like collection select? Let's go over these arguments one more time, just because there are a few of them and we want to make sure that we get this right. So the first argument in our collection select, again, is not our cow object, which you might see in some of the documentation. Remember, right here, it says if you're within a form builder, so like form 4, you can omit this first argument of, in this example, we have this person and they're building this with form with, same kind of principle. They're omitting this first person argument here. So our first argument is going to be our farmer ID, which will build the key inside of our params hash for this farmer ID. That is what we're permitting in our cow params right here, farmer ID. The value for this farmer ID is going to come from this ID attribute here. If we were to make this name, we're going to send for our farmer ID an actual name of a farmer. Rails wouldn't really know what to do with that, so we have to make sure that our farmer ID matches the actual ID of the farmer. The last one right here will be the label of our dropdown. So if we go to this dropdown, this is all of our labels. It's the actual name of the farmer. And then the one in the middle is all of our farmers. We can also say farmer.all here. Either one will work. We're just trying to, be consistent, I guess, with our code.
If you use @farmers, you have to define it in your, okay.
Correct, you have to define that here. If you do farmer.all, it's no problem. Like, again, feel free to kind of, I would always say, like, try to get a working solution, however you achieve that. If you say @farmers, if you say farmer.all, that's fine. There's always time, or there's always room to refactor later. If you want to, like, separate your concerns a little bit more, make sure that you get a working solution first. Any other questions about this collection select? Okay.
I can look up more details on the documentation, but I assume you could probably order that list by alphabet or capitalize it if you wanted to.
Yeah, that's a great question. What's that, Noah?
You can do it inside a controller.
Exactly. So this is another reason that we might want to keep our farmers variable inside the controller, because we might want to do more work here. Like, what if we want to sort all of our farmers, right? It's a really good point.
You can string like dot capitalize or something like that.
We want to capitalize them, or maybe we want to filter them out so that we can only see like half the farmers, or I don't know, whatever you want to do. But that we would do that here. All right, so let's finish up our crate. We haven't even really created our new cow yet, so let's make this happen. What do I need inside of my crate?
@cow equals cow.new, and then we pass the cow params.
Cool.
And @cow.save. Or we do an if statement before.
Yeah. So we can kind of, do this in one step. We can say if the cow saves, and this doesn't mean that we're just checking like, is the cow able to save? But if the cow is valid, we actually save the cow. Like, this line of code actually runs, right? And it's going to return to us either a false value, like the cow wasn't able to be saved because of some reason, or it's going to return to us, I believe it actually returns the actual cow if it was able to save it. So then that is a truthy value, and it means that we're going into our if statement, not our else. Okay, so if the cow saves, what do we want to do?
Redirect to
the page.
To
cow.
Maybe, yeah. And we can also say cow path here, right? Pass the cow in, whichever one you feel more comfortable with. I'll just write them both out. And then otherwise, we want to
render new.
Render new.
Exactly. Okay, we don't have a show page for the cow yet. We could create that. There's like our logic is pretty much where I would want it to be, but hypothetically, if we had.
I have a quick question. Is render new there just going to return back to the new page to try to recreate another one?
Yeah, so it's going to render. So the important difference here is that it doesn't actually make a separate HTTP request after we hit this action. So we are just going to render this new page as opposed to redirecting somewhere else to a different page, which would send us to a different action, which makes it possible to keep this @cow variable around. So if we render the new page, this @cow variable will become this variable right here, which means if we filled out part of our form already, it will pre-fill these attributes so we don't have to like type it out again.
So it's just refreshing the page with the prior information.
So I wouldn't say it's refreshing the page. And there are also some differences here between if we use form for or form with, because form with actually deals a little bit differently with that. That's what, I think that's what I sent you all yesterday. It's just rendering, it's like we were going to, so if we type in cow/new, right? We hit enter, we're hitting this controller action and we are rendering the new page. We don't actually make another request to another page. We're just like showing this page to the user without having to make another request, because making another request would mean that all of the data, all of our instance variables that we had previously would go away, right? HTTP requests are always stateless, so we can't save data from one to the next. But if we render, we are able to use these instance variables that we have in this particular action inside of this page, whatever page we're rendering. So, and if we do a redirect, that is when the page actually refreshes and we go to like a new page. We can even, so if we were to say, let's do this actually. If we were to, yeah, let's try this. If we were to redirect to, what is it? Our new path probably, right? Or is it new cow path? Oh, whoops. So this is for our new cow path. So if we were to redirect here, and let's add a validation, because otherwise we're not gonna run into this. Let's add a validation here for our cow, that our cow has to have a name. Can someone help me write that validation?
Validates name, presence, true.
Name, presence, true. This is like a very common validation, and I know we're actually going to do another lecture on validations on Monday, but I think we've already covered some of the basic ones, and we'll probably go through some of the other more basic ones as well today. So here we're validating the name of the cow. We're making sure that every time that we create a new cow, we have to have we have to have a name. We can't create a new cow with an empty name. So if now we go to our cow/new, remember that I put into my else statement, I put a redirect now instead of a render. If I'm going to fill out just the number of spots and just the farmer, and I'll try to create this new cow, notice that my page is refreshing. I'm being sent to the new page where I want to go, but I'm first of all not showing, we'll talk about error handling as well. When we're not showing any errors to the user, we are not saving their data in any way, but instead we're just refreshing the page and just starting all over from scratch. That is why we want to use the render new here, because now if we fill out our number of spots and our farmer, and we try to create this new cow.
You need to put quotes before new?
No.
No, that should be okay. What do we have? Farmers.
Maybe this.
Oh, okay. So this is actually a great error to have. So it's telling me, hey, we have an undefined method for map, undefined method map for nil class. I remember we kind of talked about this error previously. If I get an undefined method, whatever, for nil class, what part of my code here, this is hard to see because there's a lot going on in the background, but it's telling me which line of code this is affecting, right? Can someone maybe guess what might be going on here?
Is collection synonymous with map? And so it's like map underscore select, or is that?
Yeah, so in a way we have, we're gonna have a farmer's array, right? that we have to, where we have to iterate and show each farmer in our dropdown?
It fires the create action. So you have at cow, but in create, you don't have at farmers. So by the time it renders new inside the create action, at farmers is gone.
That's exactly right. So remember in our new, let me take this render out. In our new, we create this at farmers variable, right? But now our form is being rendered via our create action. So if we don't add an at farmers variable in here to render in our new, for our new form, we're going to run into an error like this. The easy way to solve this is, instead of creating this variable here, we can do what we talked about earlier, and we could just say farmer.all. Then we wouldn't run into this problem. But it's actually a good thing that we ran into this. I think it makes it clear that we are actually rendering this new page coming from this create action, not from the new action. So first time around, we render it from the new action. Second time around, we render it from our create. We have to make sure that we have this farmers variable.
Could you stick that at farmer or at cows in a belongs to method as well to help kind of limit these type of errors?
Say that one more time.
So we have
belongs to.
like at cow gets cow.new, and we've been sticking that into like the belongs to up top. You have a private method with it.
Oh,
read the code.
You mean a before action?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Could you stick the at farmer.all in a before too?
You absolutely could. Maybe we want to call this like get all farmers. And then what that might look like is just we say farmers equals farmer.all. And then here, if you actually always want to show a sorted list of farmers, this is where you would sort it, right? So then you can create this before action. It's a really good point. For action for get all farmers. And we only want to run this for our new and then our create, right? Yes, we could absolutely do this. That's a great point. And then we can take this out and take that out.
Why wouldn't we do that for edit as well?
We probably want to, yeah.
Yet?
No, we haven't, just because we haven't gotten there yet. Yeah, exactly. If that's confusing for someone and you understand this part better here, feel free to like go with this. This is a little bit more like advanced way of writing your code just so you don't have to repeat yourself too much. But again, feel free to use the way that you feel more comfortable with to get it working. All right, let's try this out. Cows/new. Okay, so we want to create a new cow, and let's get back to what we're working on. So first of all, the redirect we had earlier. If we do this with redirect, we type in number of spots 20, we have a farmer, we create this new cow, we redirect, we refresh the page, all of our values are gone, like really bad user experience. I would be furious if I'd written like a long paragraph of something. So that is why we want to use this render to new. Now if we type in 20 and we choose our farmer, we try to create the new cow, we make sure that we render our page with that pre-existing data, which is now coming from our @cow variable right here inside of our create action. Any further questions here?
It doesn't matter if you do render :new or render tick new and tick.
No, if you put this in quotes or something like that, is what that might mean?
Yeah.
No, doesn't really matter. It's just different syntax. Cool. Let's see. I think that's pretty much it. We want to make sure Data is pre-filled. Okay. What else? So this is pretty much it with like the associations. I have a couple of bonus topics that we can talk about. We still have like 20 minutes, so let's go ahead and do that. Let me see what I have. Okay, validations. Let's do a couple more validations. Just to be sure, I know we still have time to like talk about validations next week, but I know that you might do a couple of labs throughout the weekend that involve validations. So validations are actually pretty straightforward. There are different types of validations that you can add depending on the, oh, I did want to do some error handling. We'll do that right after validation. So there are different types of validations you can add depending on what attributes you have. A very common one is this one right here, where you validate the presence of some kind of attribute. So you have to make sure that the name exists before you create this cow. This also holds true for if you're trying to create this new instance of a cow or farmer, whatever you have in your Rails console. It should give you an error like you need to have a name for this cow. One other thing, and there's also different syntax to this. If you look at the Rails validations, you can see this all in the docs. So we have our like validates presence true. There's something about what if we wanted to say that yes, a cow needs to have a name, but also that name should only exist once. Does someone know what the validation is for that?
Uniqueness.
Uniqueness, exactly. I can't find it here right
Could
now.
you
There it is.
also do something like this name can only be entered in, and it can only be like 9 characters long?
Absolutely, yes.
Oh God.
You can do so much with validations. So I believe if you want to add multiple, you can turn this into a hash. So we have our presence true. Add some space here. And
You
then
can do
let's
this
also
with the password, right? Basically.
Yeah.
Like you can have
so like
all
password.
these validations,
Mhm.
and then you
For
mask it, and then it's like you need a cap, you need. Okay, cool.
Yep. Yep. Email address. You need to have. Probably want to have certain validations for an email address. A phone number. Right. It needs to have a certain length or format. So let's add this like uniqueness, and then we'll say true. So we can only ever create a cow with a unique name. Let's also validate our spots. We can validate our spots. We can say, and this kind of goes along the lines of what Ashley was mentioning, like what if we want to validate that a cow is, can have only fewer spots than 20, or only more spots than 5, or something like that. So let's do spots.
Minimum, maximum.
What's that?
You can do minimum or maximum here.
Yes, exactly. So this is our numericality validator. See if I can find a good example. Here we go. No. See if we can find something. Here we go. So we can say like length, certain minimum maximum length. It's not really what I'm looking for though. I think for numericality, we can say we want something less. So if you want to say like a cow can only have up to 50 spots, we can say like less than, and let me see if I can find this. Here it is. So less than or equal to, and we say less than or equal to 50 or 20. And we can also say, what do we have? Equal to, greater than or equal to. So we should be able to add this, greater than or equal to 5, right? At least 5 spots, no more than 50. And then we'll do some error handling in just a second. And then whenever we fill out our form, oh, whoops, new form, we say we want a cow with 3 spots, and I don't know which cows do we have already. I don't remember.
Let's do Jenny.
Jenny.
Be
Create
in
this
Molly,
cow.
too.
Okay. Yeah. So the reason that this one probably failed because I don't think we have a cow with a name of Jenny is because of the spots. So let's add some error handling here, and then we can actually see the errors that are coming up when we are trying to create a new cow. So again, these validations, this is pretty much it when it comes to validations. There's not a whole lot more that's going on here. You can do some crazy validations if you want. I think you've done in one of the labs, like validating to make sure, like a scope validator, to make sure that only, yeah, Alec is nodding. There are different kinds of validations that you can do. Like check out, we can go through more of these, but a lot of it is just in the documentation, you know, min, max, having a certain length, any of that is possible. It kind of depends on what kind of model you're using. All right, so let's do some error handling. If I want to show the user an error that they're getting, so like a cow needs to have at least 5 spots, where should I do that?
On the show, well, on whatever view you're on.
And what view is that for when there's an error?
Would it be the new.html?
Yes, because remember, like if we're not able to save a cow, we render the new page again, right? So this is where we want to show the user the error. This would also hold true if we had an edit page. You probably want to have that kind of error handling on the new page and on the edit page. Both of those have forms on them, and both of those have are going to run your validations and send you back to that page if something went wrong. So we're going to do this just like we did, I think, yesterday. Because we have access to this @cow variable, we can look at if that cow instance has any errors on it. If something went wrong, if one of our validation fails, then Rails is automatically going to add this new error message to our list of error messages on that cow instance. So we can do something here. I think we did this yesterday. We can say if our cow dot errors, if we have any errors on this cow, you could also hypothetically say cow dot errors dot full messages dot length or something like that to check, like, is the array, you know, empty? Like if it's equal to 0, then don't show anything. This is just like a little shorter way of writing this, and it should get us to the same result though. Let's make sure we end that here. So inside of here, like if there are any errors, we want to make sure that we show those errors to the user. Create like an unordered list, and then for each error message, we're going to show a list item. And this is going to work because we are using Form 4. If anybody looked at the Stack Overflow that I sent out yesterday, with form with, we have to add this extra attribute that is like local true, right? We're probably not going to get into that too much right now. Just know that, like, if your errors aren't showing up and you're using form with, that's probably the problem. It has to do with the type of requests that that Rails is now making with form with. There have been some changes to that. Okay, so we're going to stick with Form 4 though. And we want to check, like, we want to take a look at all of our errors, which is at cow.errors. And we just want all the full messages, which will give us these messages that are like humanly readable. So that's nice to show to the user. And then let's call this error. So one error at a time. And then within here, we'll create a list item so that looks a little nicer. And then we have our error right here. Or you can also call it error message or message.
And we need .h on errors.full messages.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. All right, we are back to our index. Oops. There we go. Okay, so if we fill out a cow, let me check. So I guess we should, else console. If we say cow.all, we have, okay, Molly, do that. All right, so we're gonna create a new cow with a name that already exists and fewer than 5 spots. And then let's choose a farmer, create this new cow, and we get 2 error messages. We need to have a unique name, and we need to have more than 5 spots. If we put in 300 spots, we need to have more than 50 spots, less than 50 spots. You know, these are your validations at work. Any questions about this piece of code here to show our error messages?
So we get the 2 messages because we had 2 different errors. So if I'll try like do new cow with a new name, I'll have only 1. Okay.
Correct.
And if we move the error messaging there, the if all that to the bottom of the form, it would then appear on the bottom, or it would appear below this.
Yep, exactly. Cows, new. We have Molly, 1 spot. And then we have the errors down here.
Can you show what it would look like with the based off of form width?
Sure. So this, let's like also give this a title. We'll say like errors. You need to fix this. Okay. It doesn't really matter where you put your errors, whatever you feel like looks better for the user, you know, it's up to you. Oh, you wanted to do this with form width, yeah. So form width, I'm just gonna write this 1 line of code, that's all we need to change. So let's comment out this one here. And then with form width, believe you have to say model is cow, and then we can say local true. And that should work. Let's try this out. Okay, so Molly, 2 spots. And this will still show our error messages. If we do not have this local true, that's what we ran into yesterday. We are not going to get the error messages. And the reason for that is how we still don't create the cow, but the reason for that is how Rails deals with the submit on a form width.
Curious question.
What?
On the form width, if it passes the validations and local is not true, so it's sending the XHR request, will it still create the cow, or will it just never check the create action?
If everything passes.
Yeah, so like if you put in there Zach and number of spots is 6. So it works.
We don't have a template, but yes, that works.
But it does work. Okay, that's very interesting. Okay,
absolutely.
Cool, thank you.
What is the name of the local true method you had just used? Like if I want to put more info on it.
If you just like look up form with local, I think you should be able to see it. I think this is what I sent you yesterday. Let's see, no. So the form with Rails helper, actually, if you go to like form with Rails guides, all the explanations are on there. So if we look for local, we have this little notification here for what the local true does. And this has to, again, this has to do with the type of request that we're making. Yeah, feel free to check that out. Whichever one you feel more comfortable in using.
Thank you.
Go ahead
If you
and
had
use
a really long form and you had an error, from the user perspective, you'd want to be able to hone in on where that error is located in that longer form. And so usually it's like highlighted or somehow like pops out. Is that handled then by JavaScript, or is that something we could do with Ruby to highlight where the error is, put the error message there as well?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know what the ideal way of doing this is, but I think, see if we go, we should be able to just set, so essentially like what I would be thinking is like, we should be able to set on our input fields, set a class based on if there's an error or not. So we should be able to do something like, yeah, I don't know exactly what this would look like, but like.
But it would be handled
it.
by Ruby. It can be handled by Ruby versus outsourced to JavaScript.
Yeah, yeah, I don't see why not. If we have access to our errors, we should be able to set the class dynamically via Ruby. Yeah.
Yeah, I can look that up. That's good to know.
I missed out on what you had asked. What was it, Brad?
If you have a long form, usually it's nice to the user to know this line down in here among other fields, that's your error, and flag it, highlight it, whatever. I was asking if Ruby handled that part. Yeah, if Ruby rendered that error at that particular line versus JavaScript, and apparently Ruby can handle that at that particular line rather than what we're seeing now at the high.
That'd be cool, something to look up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, if someone's going to dive into that, like please share that in the channel. That'd be a cool thing to be able to do.
Blog article for someone.
Yeah, blog article. Good idea. Cool. Does everybody feel pretty good about like links and creating links and buttons? Yeah. See some thumbs up. Okay. I mean, just the link to that we did the other day, right? Just making sure that that's all good. Scrolling through my list here.
The links with the has many relationships is a little trickier. What does that mean? Like when?
Yeah. So like what?
I don't know. I was one of the labs.
Do you have an example for like what you had to do that was tricky?
I was linking to, it was like an artist, and it was on a song show page, and I had a link to the artist and the genre, but the link was like at song.artist.name, and then it was using like calling instead of just having like a link and then like a normal link. It was just a lot different, but I'm sure like we'll go over that when we do has many.
Yeah, so one other thing that like maybe this helps for link to, the way that you've been writing link to is probably something like this.
Yeah.
Like so all cows, right? And then you have the like cows path. This like cows path, this doesn't have to be, you don't actually have to use a path here. You could hypothetically just use like a relative URL. So if we want to go to /cows, you can just say, hey, take me to /cows. If you want to make this more like dynamic and say, we want to go to a single cow, like we want to make sure that we take the user, let's take the user to the like cow edit page. This part right here, you can just use plain old string interpolation to get the, what do we have here, at cow.id, right? Get the cow ID, send them to the cow edit page. You're like writing this out just more manually. So if you have like a complex path, this is also always a way that you could create this.
Yeah,
know
I
if
think the
that's
way
helpful.
that was in the lab it was shown differently. It was like
I have it. I can send it in the Zoom or the Slack.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just trying to figure out if we can still do something about like a many to many, if we're gonna have time. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, we should probably take a break here. We're already gone for a while. We'll do, still kind of want to do many to many. Okay, so this is going to be recorded, right? So let's do this. If whoever wants to go to lunch and like take a break, feel free. I'm going to go over just super quickly a many to many. We'll still do many to many on Monday, but that way, if you're doing something like a many to many on the weekend, you have a good idea of what that will look like. Does that sound okay with everybody?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yep.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, let's close this. I think I'm gonna take the lecture we did yesterday, and let's go ahead and take that like game model. Oh, right. Oh, I haven't been watching the. Oh, okay, so Lucas said link to at song artist name and an artist path. Okay, so yeah, that's pretty straightforward. Let's talk about that. So let me grab this first. I'm gonna put this in here. All right, call this Gamify Mini. All right. Cool, so Lucas pasted this right here. Oh, that is.
Oh yeah, that's fine. I think that happens when you paste it from Zoom for the format.
Really? Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, never had that happen to me. Okay, so we have our so maybe what you're like concerned about was this if. Let's write this in like a couple of different ways. So first of all, let's take the if out. We're just gonna kind of dissect this. So we have a link to at song.artist.name, which is like just gonna print out the name of the artist, right? We have a song object that we're getting the artist. So each song has an artist, and we're grabbing the name from that artist. The path that we are trying to send the user to is the artist path, and we have to make sure that we pass in the song's artist, so that actual object, the actual instance of the artist. Does this part make sense? Is it not quite clear?
I think it was the artist.name portion in line 3, like that song.artist.name where you're
that was weird. Okay.
Yeah.
Can you
okay, so
repeat that part? The link to what link to at songartist.name is trying to get to?
Yeah. Okay, so we had so if we think about farmers and cows, well, I guess let's do songs and artists. That makes a lot of sense too. So let's draw this out actually. Let me get my drawing stuff. Okay, so we have an artist and we have a song, right? And a song, an artist has many songs, I assume, right? And a song belongs to an artist. So that means if we have a song will have an attribute on it that is an artist attribute. So in your model, you're gonna have some kind of relationship that says song belongs to artist, right? And then artist has many songs in your artist model. So if you have this song, so if you have this at song, This is going to be one instance of one song. Now, because of what you have in your model, because your song model says belongs to artist, this allows you to use a method on the song called artist. So whenever you have the song instance, you can say dot artist. That will give you, I'm just gonna write art, artist. That will give you one instance of one artist that is, that belongs to the song. So this in and of itself, like all of this will return to you an artist instance, right? Along with all of the attributes that are associated with this particular artist. So an artist has a name, an artist has, I don't know, what else does an artist have? Other things.
An ID.
An ID, yeah. So now that you have this artist instance, can't help but not write it out. Okay, now that you have this artist instance, you can call other method on this artist that this artist has. So an artist, again, has a name. So if we say artist, this is the same as hypothetically saying if we had this artist instance, say artist.name, right? We grab the artist's name. In this case, we're just going through another instance to get to this artist. So we're just saying artist, you know, song.artist.name instead of like at artist.name because we don't have a variable called at artist. Does that explain it a little bit more?
Yeah.
Right. And this will
This was
return to
because we
us
were-
like an actual string, right? So like queen or something like that.
And this is because we were in the song class. That's why we had to call it that way when we were writing the link to.
Yeah, so which file was this in?
This was
you had
within the
link?
song class, I think.
Okay. Like on like a song show page or something, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're on a song show page, then you likely have in your controller, you know, like at song equals song dot find, right, by the params.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have access to the song, and this is the beauty of object-oriented programming, and you've like hopefully explored this in mod 1 already. Your instances, your objects are all connected. If you're using, that is why we don't just say we have this like string of an artist name and you know, we're gonna connect this with like a string of a song name. Then at this point, like once we have just strings, we can't go anywhere else. But as long as we're dealing with instances of classes, so like a song instance and an artist instance, we can like keep going forever in like exploring those relationships. So we can say, you know, at song dot artist dot songs dot I don't know what else what other relationships do you have?
Like,
what?
Like you could like map out all the
Sure.
artists.
And this is like
all
we're
the
getting
songs that the artist wrote.
right. So we're getting like the artist of that song, and then that song has many artists. So we're grabbing all of those songs, and hypothetically we can go like we can say songs dot first dot artist again, and you know we're just kind of going in a circle here, but this is what it like creating these classes and these instances makes it possible for us to explore those different relationships and get to like pretty much any piece of data that we want if it's somehow within our relationship.
I was stuck at the part where I was calling the artist path and I was calling at artist, but I can't call that because I'm not in the artist page. I'm in the song page, right? So I need to call song.artist to get to that artist ID.
Right. So it always depends on what you have in your controller. If your controller, like, if in your controller, I guess this is probably your show action, right? This is going to be your songs controller. So in your show action, you probably have a variable. I wrote this out here somewhere already, like called song, and where you're finding a song. Now, if you also had an artist variable, you could use that. And hypothetically, you could just say here, you could create this. You could say @song.artist. And now you can use this artist variable in your view if you want to, and
I
replace
could've
it with
put
this.
path, and then I could add the path. I could have done just @artist there.
Absolutely.
Oh, cool.
This
And
is
we wouldn't
just
have
the
to
only.
We wouldn't
Yeah,
have had to
Daniel?
include artist path there either. We could have just done
Oh,
link to
right.
art. Yeah.
Yep.
So basically, you can modify in your controller based on what you can use in your pages.
Yeah.
But we would still have to do the song.artist. You couldn't just do artist equals artist.all in that @artist equals art. Like it would have to be @song.artist.
Well,
Correct.
yes, because it depends on like which artist do you want to get? Like this is a specific artist. So this specific artist is related to this song. If we said something like artist.all, that would give us like all the artists. That wouldn't really get us anywhere. It has to be specific to this particular song, like related to this song. That's why we are saying like @song.artist here .name. But we could like move that logic into the controller by saying @artist equals @song.artist. It doesn't really matter how you do it, as long as you maintain those relationships between your instances.
Okay. Cool.
And then the other part of this was this if part, right? The only thing that this is doing is we're checking, hey, is there actually an artist on like related to this song? If there is, go ahead and like show this link. Otherwise, don't show it.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so let's do the many-to-many real quick. We have a game, and let's add some players. So if we have games and players, let's start with a domain modeling. We have games. We have players. How are these two related? How could they be related?
A game has many players.
Mm-hmm. And what about the other?
A player can have many games.
Right. So that's many-to-many, right? So what do we need then if we have a many-to-many?
Game player or player game, something like that.
Domain table.
Yeah.
Exactly. I just read about this. I actually didn't know this either, but I guess you're supposed to follow name your table alphabetically. So if game is, so we have A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right? Game is first before our player. So this would be like games, players, games. Oh, bad. Okay, let me, so we have a game. And then we're gonna have, right, this lowercase, so this is our table. And we're gonna have a games players table. And then we're gonna have a players table. Okay, so then, because we have a many-to-many, and this is always true, many-to-many, a game will have many games players. And a player will have many games players. This is like that little prong chicken feet thing. So games players belongs to one game and belongs to one player. And player will have many games players and game will have many as well. Any questions about the domain modeling here? This is really important that you understand how these things are modeled out.
So the games players would just have the IDs for both players and games within it, and then the players and the games would have like the specific information about the game and about the players. So like
exactly.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, let's write this out too. So we have a title, and then games players, we're gonna have a player ID, right? And then game ID. And then let's see, a player just has like a name or something. Cool. And then this is essentially going to be our game will have many games players, and it also has many. How do I write this? How can I say that a game has many players?
Game has many players through games players.
Yes, very good.
Could you not also do has many and belongs to in this case, since you don't really care about the data in games players? You just need a connection.
Have it be like all in one? Yes, hypothetically. Let's see. So the one reason why you wouldn't want to do this is if you had additional attributes on your join model. And I can think of, let's see, what if we had like a score, right? The game got like the player got a score for that particular game. That would go on our games players table. So in that case, once we have additional attributes on there, we need this join model in between. But you're right, if we don't have any additional attributes, we wouldn't hypothetically need that.
And if you don't know if you'll have additional attributes, the default would be what you have here that has many through then.
I would say so. Like if you're not quite sure, then like the safe thing to do is to create that extra join model, join table. Okay, so let's finish this. This would be our belongs to game, right? And belongs to player. And then we're also going to have our has many through on our player.
No.
This is not big enough. Okay. And then we have many games through player games players. Sorry, there's not enough space. Okay, I think you get it.
And shouldn't the games players on the after the through also have a colon? Through colon games players?
Yeah.
Where? I'm not seeing it.
Before the games players, it's through colon and then colon games players.
Oh, yeah, good catch. Cool. Any questions about what we've built here? This is just modeling our relationships. This is, yeah.
So is the first one saying title has many players through game players, and then players also have many games through games players?
So title is just an attribute on the game.
Oh, I mean game, just, yeah.
Then I'm sorry, say that one more time.
So is this saying that game has many players through game players, and that players also has many games through games players?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
So that's our like many to many. So a game is going to have many players, a player is going to have many games, and we're doing that through our games players table. Okay, let's create, okay, so we already have games. Let's create some players. So Rails generate, let's do a resource. And we'll make this a player resource, and a player is just going to have a name to keep it simple. And then we can create our join table, and we're just going to do this manually because why not? Let's go to our migrations. So right here we have our games, we have our players. We need the join table. So actually, how do you all think, like, how would you want to create this join table between the and model between the players and the games? We can also use a generator, whatever you all feel like you want to do.
For the generator, would you just generate a model for game players?
Sure.
or is there like a? I've been wondering if there's a Rails generator that like just creates an association. Like
Yeah.
Rails.
So yeah, like we did earlier with the references.
Maybe, yeah, kind of like that. I guess you could just start just do a Rails G model game players, players reference, games reference, right?
Yeah, so games, players, and I think in the labs, and this is also how I learned it, it's like game players. I don't think it matters in the end too much.
It's
But I
got to be
did
game
read.
players because it only pluralizes the end. We ran into that with the dish tags thing in the lab. Rails doesn't know to pluralize the first word sometimes.
Okay, I did read about this though, that a join model should be plural on both ends, and I don't know. I'll send that to you guys and see if we run into any problems here. I guess let's try it out. So model games players, and then you said game references and player references. Let's try that out. All right, so we have our model, we have our migrations. Let's check out our migrations first. This creates this references for us, just like we did previously. And if we migrate, we can see that we now have this games players table, which includes our game ID and our player ID.
And this would be the same if we did it with just as opposed to using the references, just doing a t.integer game ID, t.integer player ID, right?
Yeah, let's do that as well. Let's roll back and let's instead of these references, we're gonna say t dot, what'd you say, Daniel?
Integer,
Mhm.
and then game underscore ID, and then t.integer player underscore ID.
Perfect. Let's give that a shot. Migrate this and check out our schema. And we have the same functionality. We just kind of did it a little bit more manually. As I mentioned earlier, the parts that this doesn't include is we don't get this like faster database through the indexing. And then there are some relationship things that this references would also create for us that we don't get like out of the box. It's again, functionality wise, it's pretty much the same though. Whichever ones you understand better, like go with that for now. Okay, so testing out our relationships. Yeah, question?
Can we do inside the create table belongs to instead of line 6 and 7?
You could do that too, yeah. So there are like so many different ways of doing this. I think it's just like this, right? Belongs to.
Yeah.
Right. Game. Mm-hmm.
And if I'll do the belongs to, I still get the index?
Let's see. Let's try this out. So let's roll this back. Let's do the roll back. Oh, not quite.
It probably doesn't like that you changed it before running rollback.
Yeah, I actually didn't type
Oh,
out the whole thing. Okay, so Rails DB migrate. And yeah, then we get our indexes. The only other thing I guess that the references adds is this thing called this foreign key constraint. And but other than that, like again, functionality wise, it's same thing. So whichever way you want to choose to do it, it should work out.
Cool. Thanks.
Yeah. All right, let's stick with this Rails console. Oh, Rails console. Okay, and let's test our relationships. And we can do that by, we have, yeah, we have some games, right? Yeah. Game.all, let's do like game.first dot players. right? So this should have, we have an undefined method players for the game class. How come I'm getting this error?
Do we not have any players available?
So even if we didn't have players available, it should give us an empty array. A good guess though. I'm missing something else.
Do we have to go through the game player to get to there?
We don't actually.
First,
Rails. What's that?
Oh, sorry, I was talking out loud.
Yeah. So I created my migrations, right? What else do I need to make sure is set up before I can use my relationships?
You need to add the relationships to the models.
Yes, exactly. So you always check your models. And this right here is an indicator. Whenever you see this undefined method something for an instance, that probably means that you're missing some kind of relationship in your model. This is what creates those particular methods. So this is for our game. So if we go to our game, we can see that we don't have any kind of associations with other models yet. We wrote this out earlier. We just haven't added it yet, right? So in our game, what kind of relationships does our game have?
Has many games players.
Games players. Okay.
Has many players through games players.
Right. That's right.
Okay, good.
I like to put my relationships at the top personally. One small thing here that is actually important is the order of these two. If we were to switch these, Rails would tell you, hey, I don't know what games players is yet. So make sure that you have your join before you have your through relationship. And now, even without creating the other relationships, we should be able to say game.first.players. And we don't have any players, but we get an empty array and not an error anymore. By writing out .players, we are using this method right here that is being created for us. This is called players. If this was called XYZ, the method would be called XYZ. Obviously, we want to stick with our conventions, but this .players is coming from right here, from this line of code.
So similar to an attr accessor, it's not just like text, but it's a whole featured thing. It brings everything with it.
Yeah, yeah. All right, let's finish our player. I'm just gonna copy this here. Our player is gonna have many games, also through games players. And then right here, because we created our little belongs to, or we ran our references generator, it automatically added this for us. But still double check if that's in there, just to make sure. Okay, so I'm pretty confident that our relationships are set up correctly now, and we can build forms or whatever we want to do. I'm not even sure what else I had planned for this at this point. I really wanted to make sure that we build out that many-to-many relationship. But from here, we can, if you want to build forms, you can do that. Does anybody have any suggestions for what you want to build out? Or I just want to give this a few more minutes and then we should stop that.
Could I see an example of you doing a link to?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So let's run our server here. So we're gonna have let's go to our games page. Oh, what are we missing? Oh, I think this is because I copied my I copied this over into a different folder. So let's make sure that we run bundle install. See if that fixes it. We might have to get rid of, no. And I'm just gonna get rid of our node modules. Yeah, I don't know. Let's see if this works. Yeah, I was moving. I moved the. I moved this earlier. Did it not move that file? Let me check this out over here real quick. Okay, so we're supposed to have a Webpack file. Okay. Gotta run this, I guess. Yeah, I think this is all just because I moved this from a different folder. Couldn't find package.json. Oh my God, okay. Didn't move everything over for some reason. Sometimes does that. Okay, let's try that.
Read your messages.
Sorry, everyone. Taking longer than expected.
I think it's cool that the Rails server is like telling you what's going on.
Yeah, Rails gives some great error messages. Cross my fingers. Yeah.
Woo!
Okay. All right. So we wanted a link to, let's see. So let's do like a complicated one, right? So if we have, what do we want to link? So if we have like a game, maybe link to all the players, or?
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah. Okay, so like maybe on the game show page, we can create a link, and we have.
The game.
What's that?
Can we do like inside the game to put like a list of all the players for this game?
Let's do that. Let's first of all, I guess we don't have any players yet, so create some in the console. Create name Bob. Okay, I guess I should just do this in our seeds file. What else? Who else wants to play? Brad wants to play. Huh?
Morty wants to play.
Morty.
Morty. Okay. All right. I guess I'll just kind of grab these here. See if we can do that. Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's create some relationships. So we have to make sure that we like essentially fill in our join tables, right? So we have to create relationships between our players and our games. So we have our, what do we call it again? Models.
Game players.
Oh, games players. Yeah, make sure that, okay, so yeah, games player, I guess, is that what you meant? That it adds this plural in here and just doesn't know to make that singular. I think it's still okay, but. Okay, games player, and then we have our player, and then we have our game. And what's important here, and you should know this from mod 1, is that when we create a relationship like this, we can either pass in like our player IDs, we can say player underscore ID, right? Or we can pass in our actual player, and this has to be a player instance or a game instance. So we can say like game.first, or sorry, player.first. And then like game.first.
Couldn't you do that by also naming your players like different naming the variables or whatever, and then just calling that over there? Yeah.
Exactly. So if you had like P1, then you could say P1 here. Yeah, that's probably how I would do it. I'm not creating everything in the seed file right now. So let's just I'm just gonna want to do this quickly. We know that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players, and we have like 1, 2, 3 for maybe 6 games, 5 games. So let's just budget a little bit. All right, so we do player 1, and then we'll do player 2. And it should be good. Okay. All right, let's do all these. Cool. And then let's run our Rails server again. And then we wanted to close these. We don't need that anymore. We wanted to, on our show page, show all of our players, right? So if we want to show all of our players, do this up here. How do we get to all of the players for this particular game?
At game.players.all.
At game.players.all. What does that players give us?
Just players, that's enough.
Exactly. At game.players will give us all of the players for this particular game instance. So if we want to show for each one like a link, we can iterate. This will be one player. Make sure that we end that here. And then inside of here, we want to, we wanted a link to, right? Link to. Okay, so what do we want to link to here? How's this gonna look?
Player, or you can link to the player, you can show the player name and then you link comma player.
Okay.
Can we not link to the player name because we're not in the player class at this point?
It doesn't matter. So whatever you have access to, if you have access to the player instance here, you can show the player name, right? This is an instance of a player. If we said our players were all named Bob, this would show Bob. Obviously, that doesn't make a lot of sense, but as long as we have access to the instance of a player, we can grab the name from each player, and this will, link to the actual player instance show page, which we don't actually have yet, but.
Yeah, right after comma player, you could do that as in like player path at player, but then for this one, is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, so player path, and then, so it wouldn't be at player because we don't have an at player variable, but the variable that we have is player. It doesn't really matter if it's like, we just have a local variable here, right? As opposed to an instance variable, but it's still the same. Yeah, dogs. Still the same principle. Okay, so now we have two links down here. If we click on one of them, we obviously don't have the show action, but we're going to players/1. Right? If we go to our other one, we're going to players/3. So let's go to one of our other games. And I guess we just have like that, those two, there we go, some other players here. But our link to seems to be working just fine. We just have to specify first what we want to show inside of that link. If we named all of this Bob, we would have 2 links with a text of Bob. And then we have to specify the path, like where do we actually want to go. I would also recommend, like, if you're not quite sure, like, inspect this, take a look at the links that you have. And you can see that they just create normal A tags with the href attribute of that, like where we're supposed to go. So player 1, player 2. Any questions? Cool. Let's end it here and hope that you can all have